I'm Tim Kremer, the Executive Director of the New York State School Boards Association. New York State's final budget agreement wrapped up earlier this month. In education, school districts had some wins and some losses. Here to discuss education and other important topics, I'd like to welcome my guest, Senator Shelley Mayer. So, Senator, the foundation aid in the school budget, in the state budget this year, that was approved, ended up about half of what advocates like our organization, many other advocates, the Board of Regents, the state Senate had asked for. Although twice what the governor had
started
proposed.
with, yes.
And tell us a little bit, was this a case of just splitting the difference, or how did it come about that you ended up with the exact same number of foundation aid as it was the year before?
Well, first place, our goal was to get much more. I believe, and my conference believed, that schools need and deserve, and in fact were owed, substantially more foundation aid. That's why we started with a number very close to what the regions recommended. The Assembly did as well. We were not satisfied at all. We did not split the difference. We were backed down by the governor in terms of revenues available, what he was willing to put on the table for foundation aid. And so, you know, we did the best we could. We took from every other place that we could, and in fact did not fund many programs that we and my colleagues really cared about. We took money from those in order to push as much money into foundation aid as possible.
I think the expectations were such that it was going to be a much different year, and it ended up being a very similar year to what it was last year as far as the foundation aid amount. And so I think there was a level of disappointment, but honestly I would tell you, I don't want to suggest and end it there, the fact that you added $1 billion in school aid in total and $600+ million in foundation aid, that's a big deal.
We made it our point to go out and speak to school districts throughout the state. This idea that, you know, we were going to be a New York City-centric, downstate focused. I mean, I was pleased to come to the school boards and the superintendents, yes, and speak to the school administrators and go meet with the districts throughout the state. I think that was very important that we convey, and we continue to convey. We are committed to every child and every school district. So that's number one. Two is, while on money we are disappointed, on policy we did some good things. Some things I know some school districts have trouble with. But we did, you know, BOCES salary cap, a huge deal, many years waiting to be done. We got it done. We rejected a number of the governor's proposals that would have been terrible for school districts, the bundling of some of the reimbursable aid.
Right.
And so there was the pushback, right, was substantial. We tried to get building aid forgiveness as a statewide issue. We didn't get it. As you may have known, we just moved a number of bills through my committee that are going to give individual districts forgiveness for building aid penalties, and we're going to continue to push that issue.
Let me talk a bit about the permanent tax cap.
Right.
So here was something that the Senate actually passed before the budget was introduced, early January. Right. You passed this, kind of a surprise, quite honestly. And you had that. The governor, of course, wanted a permanent tax cap all along. How did you go about, you and the governor, go about convincing the Assembly to go ahead and pass that permanent tax cap without much in the way of any changes to the existing cap?
Well, let me just say about the tax cap. You know, I represent probably one of the highest tax counties in the state, Westchester. The average tax, property tax, is well over $15,000, $20,000. Yep. And for many people, including people who do not have an ongoing relationship with our school districts, they're seniors, their kids have grown, or they don't have kids, you know, they are resentful, and rightly so, that taxes are making it very difficult for them to continue to live in communities they chose to live in. And I wouldn't underestimate the impact of this federal tax change, the SALT deduction, on communities like mine, where people moved to the suburbs. They thought, you know, I'm willing to pay a lot because my kids are going to go to an excellent school, but I'm going to be able to deduct my property tax over $10,000. Now they can't. So there were changes that I think called out for a response on behalf of property taxpayers, and I'm pleased we did it. But overall, I would say, you know, there is a movement against the notion that property taxes are going to be the way we fund everything, whether it's education or municipal services. And while the state is cutting back in terms of AIM, for example, aid to municipalities, we just can't place additional burdens on property taxpayers. So I'm very mindful of that. I'm glad our conference did it. I'm glad the Assembly came along. I hope that we can work on some potential modifications that address, particularly for school districts, the challenge of staying within the tax cap. The one thing I've said very frankly is our schools have to be community resources. They do not belong only to students in pre-K through 12th grade. The more they become community resources, the less resentment there will be about paying the taxes for our schools, which are part of the institution and fabric of our communities.
What do you think is going to happen next when it comes to the legalization of the adult use of recreational marijuana?
Right, those are all the right words. So I think I'm in favor of a slower approach. I would say that young people think we are crazy, that my children, for example, my adult children think I'm quite out of step.
Mine too.
I'm sure, but that being said, I'm not convinced that we have to move ahead as quickly as the governor would have wanted. I don't know what's going to happen. There's still a very strong push to do it, and both as a source of revenue and for people who think that we're fooling ourselves. It's already out there. That being said, I think there may be more thoughtful and slower ways if we're going to move in that direction. I'm not sold on moving that way. I'm in the look and see model as you are. We'll wait and see the next few months how it plays out.
So you're sponsoring a bill that
Yes.
we like very much. It is Senate Bill 4720, and it would require at least one school board member on every industrial development agency board. Why did you introduce this legislation?
Well, I'm very concerned about these industrial development agencies. I mean, I'm all for economic development. My community is booming with it. Much of it with tax breaks and financing offered by industrial development agencies. These are quasi-public. They're basically appointed by the chief municipal officer. They sort of do what the city or town wants. They can offer a tax break that has an absolute impact on our school district, and the school district is not in the mix. Right. Either more, develop housing with more students without any contribution to property tax. They may offer a tax break that ultimately separately impacts a school district's funding. We have to have a unified conversation about development before we use public money. This is not a private deal. This is public money to induce development. Again, yes, but make it a fair conversation. Have someone from the school board sit there and say, no, how many kids are going to be coming into our district? Are you going to be contributing to our school tax requirements?
Well,
and we also want notification to school districts when decisions are made that are going to impact that district.
So these IDEAs oftentimes will approve a pilot in lieu of tax,
Yes.
Payment in lieu of tax,
Yes.
Pilot. Also, I know in one instance I was involved in, the IDA had approved the building of a structure right next to a school that the school objected to.
Exactly.
This is not a good thing to have next to a school, and yet they had no control over that.
Yes, and that's not right. We're going to have substantial reforms to IDAs, and part of it is going to be engaging a bigger conversation, having more votes on that IDA board. It should not be a rubber stamp for what one person who runs a municipality, who's elected, wants to do with public money. Again, that building that you described is either partially funded by a tax deferral or something else
Right.
with public money. Let the public input, and the school district is part of the public apparatus and deeply affected by these IDA decisions. So, I think with my colleague, Senator James Skoufis, we are together going to push back on some of these IDA practices.
Well, we appreciate it. Well, Senator, I really do appreciate it.
pleasure.
First of all, congratulations on your appointment as
Thank
the
you.
chair of the Education Committee.
Big deal.
A lot of stuff going on there. You're going to be very busy, and they chose wisely
Thank you.
in
That's
putting
very
you there.
nice
So
of
we
you,
really
Tim.
do appreciate that, and thank you for being on the show.
Look forward to it.
Thank you, Senator Shelley Mayer, for joining me. At the end of this segment, we will provide you with a link to view the extended interview with the senator. Until our next edition of Newsmakers, have a good day.